All right, welcome back to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. And this is the BetUS postgame show, reaction show. The Raiders lose again. They lose their third straight, their fourth of five games. They lose 20-15, 5 field goals for the Raiders. We're going to get into it, as always. A video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS, who we'll tell you about during the break. And, of course, we are an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your audio. And don't forget to rate and review the show when you get a chance as well. Make sure you follow the show on x.com, SNB Today. If you're watching us, join us in the chat. I'm sure it will be lively. We'll get to as much of it as we can through this, but we got to jump into this game, and it's just horrific performance again by the Raiders, although they were in the game till the end, believe it or not. But we're going to talk about that. And to do that, joining me as always on the postgame show is our good friend Murf from Raiders Fan Radio. Make sure you subscribe to their podcast too, wherever you get your audio. Also, their YouTube channel, Wednesday nights, they do a live show, which is fantastic. You need to check that out. And follow Murf on x.com @_Murf, MURF. And he does our Voice of the Fans section, and we're going to get to that. And as he's pointing at the video, I love that. Thank you. The direction. You're like a weather girl there, Murf.
I'm like Bobby Brady in the beginning of the Brady Bunch, Scott. I know where to look.
There you go. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so the Raiders in this one. I mean, listen, we have to start with, again, the offense and just the glaring, horrific game that Gardner Minshew had, Murph, and that's where I want to start with you. We'll get to some of the positives because there was a couple players I think we got to call out for some really good play on the defense that did really well. But Gardner Minshew, after coming in, Aiden O'Connell unfortunately broke his thumb early in this game, and I know he was on the sideline with a cast on there, or a splint, if you will. And before he went out, Aiden O'Connell, 6 of 10, 52 yards, a 73% passing rating. Not exactly blowing doors off the Rams. They were struggling on offense, even with Aiden O'Connell, missed some throws. Then they go to Gardner Minshew after the injury, and Minshew hits a defender in the hand as he's throwing the ball, and that's apparently where he broke his thumb. But Minshew comes in, and this is a line that nobody would like to see. I don't care what level of football you play. 15 of 34, 154 yards, 3 interceptions and a fumble, 4 turnovers for Gardner Minshew, 21 passer rating, 21. I'm trying to think back to like Jimmy Garoppolo, and maybe he had one that low, but I can't remember. Maybe I just want to forget, so that's why I didn't think about it. But we also look at that despite the loss, the 5-point loss, 20-15, which is single digits. Hey, improvement. Alexander Mattison, 23 rush attempts, 92 yards for an average of 4. And again, we saw Brock Bowers, just incredible. 10 catches, 93 yards. He's the player with the most catches and yardage by a tight end in Raider history and in league history, by the way, with that. So amazing start to a career for Brock Bowers, one of the bright spots. But I want to turn this over to you. There's a lot to talk about here because, of course, everybody's focusing on Minshew as they should, because if the Raiders had better quarterback play and they didn't turn the ball over, who knows? This Ram team is completely beat up without their top stars on offense. And they did not look good either. They came into the game 1-4. So this was a game where if the Raiders maybe had competent quarterback play and some competent play calling, they might have won this game. They still could have won the game towards the end. But Murph, give me just top of the list here for you and watching this game and how you felt about this from the fans' perspective, how it all unfolded.
I'm broken, Scott. Like this is it. This is the game that the Raiders broke me. Going into this game, knowing that the Rams had only won one game all season, I felt like, and they were dealing with a ton of injuries as well. I felt like this was an opportunity for the Raiders to have a get right game, right? Like coming off the disappointing loss against the Steelers, coming off the disappointing season that we have endured so far, knowing that we were heading into Kansas City, this was kind of like the get right game. And while it was unfortunate that Aiden O'Connell took that bump on the hand and broke his thumb, and who knows how long he's going to be out for. It was like the contingency plan by this organization and by the coaching staff was piss poor at an absolute best. And I think that like we can, because everyone and we should, as you mentioned, we should all look to number 15. Like, I mean, Minshew Mania is deader than dead. I mean, we've been watching a lot of scary movies because it's been October, but nothing was scarier than that performance by freaking Gardner Minshew today. And so, there's just an abysmal performance at quarterback, but this runs deep. And I think that's where I feel like as a Raider fan, like I feel like I'm broken, is that we have so many issues. So let me address some positivity, because I feel like the rest of this show for my the output from here out is going to be negative. So let me output some positive. Brock Bowers is an absolute rock star, and Tom Telesco and his early draft class has proven to be a home run. So I'm going to have faith into what the building blocks can be for this Raider team. But as far as what they are today, it is an absolute embarrassment. And as of tomorrow, no one should be safe. And when I say no one, I mean everyone except Brock Bowers, Nate Hobbs, Max Crosby, right? I mean, in terms of coaching staff, none of y'all. We have like 45 coaches, and 35 of them should be let go tomorrow. Like, and that's genuine, like, feeling. That's emotion aside, because the emotion is gone. Like, I'm not even invested anymore at this point emotionally. Now I can truly look at this team objectively, Scott, which I don't do well. But when you're beat down this bad, it's just like, all right, now let's look at this thing. Let's stop playing show friends and let's start playing show business. And when you start looking around the room and you've got a game manager guy who's been in the league for 21 years, and you got Joe Philbin, and you got Marvin Lewis, and you got, what the hell are you guys doing? What are you doing? Why are you there? Why are you there? And you know what? And Antonio Pierce, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut up. He was a fugazi, Scott. We were sold a bill of goods. We saw this 4-5 team. We saw the ill intent, the violence, the pain, the Impala, the Air Force Ones, the bringing back the Raider way. Where did it all go? It went out the goddamn window, and it's an absolute shame. And we were sold a bill of goods, and I'm embarrassed, Scott, that I bought into it 100%. And if Antonio Pierce and those guys felt like they were truly going to bring that, then that rings hollow as well. Like, where did it go? Like, I don't understand it, Scott. It's so again, I'll end it with that. Like, I'll never be embarrassed to be a Raider fan. Like, this heart, pumps silver and black blood, and I will never, ever be embarrassed to be a Raider fan. But I'm embarrassed the idea that I completely bought into the culture and the leadership and the organization, because you and I both know, and this is what you and I both do in our real lives. We are in leadership positions, and we are all about the culture of organizations and institutions. And without that, without a healthy version of that, you can't be successful. We were told endless amounts of times that that's what Antonio Pierce and this regime was going to bring to this Raiders team, was a healthy organization, a healthy culture, institution. And you know what? Where's it at? Because I don't see it. I see inconsistency. I see guys giving up on plays. I see guys taking plays off. Jack Jones, shout you out. But like, there's just, I'm going to shut up because I'm going to ramble.
No, it's okay.
You, Scott.
That's what the voice of the fan's all about.
It's a fugazi. That's that's the quick way to say it.
Yeah, and that's where the way that I look at it, of course, from the objective point, not from the fan standpoint, is looking at some of this. And I was skeptical. I mean, you know that we talked about this many times, and Mo and I have talked about it. Not people confuse this, and one of the reasons I'm wearing my special hat today is because there's some people who won't accept the truth out there, and when you bring up the truth, they suddenly think you're negative and you're just being a hater. That's not what it's about. It's about what you just said towards the end there, which is this team. Now, look, this team, it doesn't matter. Even if they were 2-5 at this point, but they were playing a style. They were playing hard. They were playing in a way. And I'm not saying, like you said, there's players who are. You look at the Raiders defense, partially playing very, very well. If you look at that, they don't create turnovers. So I'm not marking them a top 10 defense because they're not, but they're a good defense and they do more than enough to give their team a chance to win. I'll put it that way. But what we're not seeing is the discipline, the focus. And I think that's where, and I think I said it during the game, I said, boy, some of the things I'm seeing here, I would have never expected. I might have expected mistakes from a rookie head coach, but I wouldn't have expected some of what I'm seeing with the lack of discipline, the lack of what it appears to be focus on fundamentals and things like that, having offensive linemen, and this time there were no questions that they were true. The illegal players downfield on a delayed screen pass. As a lineman, it's a delayed screen pass. You have to wait. And they're not, okay? And yes, Jackson Powers-Johnson, the rookie, so you're going to see that happen. But to me, that's where the concern is. The concern is, again, going backwards. Again, we saw this offense unable to do anything. And yes, Gardner Minshew had a lot to do with that, no question. When you turn the ball over, you can't do anything. They scored every single point, the Rams did, against the Raiders off of turnovers. Okay, so who knows if you don't turn the ball over? If Aiden O'Connell stays in the game, even if they don't light it up on offense, who knows? Maybe we're looking at a game we saw last year against the Vikings where it's 6-3 final. I don't know, but at least you would have seen maybe the Raiders have a better chance. And then there was coaching decisions. There was a lot of time management issues at the end. You brought it up with the big staff. They have a game management person. And I don't understand what these people are doing, because not only was the clock not managed well, but I thought and I said this, and we'll talk about it, the last field goal, yes, the Raiders offense couldn't score all game, but you got to go for the points there. You can't take the field goal and then say, okay, now we're going to kick the ball off to the Rams. They're going to get it starting at the 30. If they get 2 first downs, the game's over. Or if it's not, you're going to have to start way deep in your own zone. Instead, if you don't get the touchdown and you turn the ball over in the red zone, at least you have the Rams backed up, and the strength of your team, which is your defense, has them on a shorter field. So those types of things I don't understand, and we seem to see those, by the way, Murph, in each game. And I'm just going to say it straight up, and if people can disagree with me, get mad at me. All right, Murph, you ready?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I do not believe, and he can change my mind, because look, it's going into week 8 now. I just don't think Antonio Pierce is ready or has the ability at this point in his career, not saying he couldn't, to be a head coach. He hasn't shown me anything. He's shown me 0 in 7 weeks to disprove that, okay? Don't talk to me about injuries. Sean McVay had as many injuries. That's why they're 1-4, the Rams. Although the 4 games the Rams lost, 3 of them were by single digits, okay? 2 or 3 points, last play of the game. So when you look at that, don't give me the excuse, all that stuff, because excuse has nothing to do with clock management, has nothing to do with penalties and things on the field that happen like we saw tonight. And so that's where I'm at. Look, he can prove me wrong. I would be happy for Antonio Pierce to prove me wrong the rest of the year. I would be happy. I just don't see it.
Yeah, there it goes back to the Fugazi conversation, Scott. And I'm right with you, man. And I don't think he's ready for prime time. I mean, I just don't, man. And I hope that he would have been, and I thought he was, and I think many of us thought he was. I mean, because this was just about, aside from a few people on the Twitters, and there's always going to be a few people on the Twitters, but aside from the few people on the Twitters, just about all of us thought this was the consensus pick, that the environment that the Raiders were in under Josh McDaniels' leadership, and the way that it changed, and the way that last year was a tale of 2 seasons. You had your first 8 games, and you had your last 9 games, and both of those felt completely different. Like, there was a way different energy. Yeah. I was thankful to be there for Antonio Pierce's first game as an interim head coach, and there for his last game as an interim head coach against the Denver Broncos. And that energy, we were riding high. It was, and so where did that go? And so one of the things that I was afraid of, Scott, and I probably should have been a little bit more vocal about this, or at least been willing to listen to my inner voice, is to know that Bill Belichick said this one time, and I know you guys don't like Bill Belichick, but it's whatever. The guy's got more rings than, I do tattoos. The idea is that emotion is fleeting, that emotion is great, and emotion is great at game time, but it's not sustainable. You can't sustain emotion over a long period of time. Well, last year, we sustained emotion for 9 weeks. And then when it came to the beginning of this season, apparently, you remember, think back to the end of the season last year when the Raiders are having these decisive victories and beating the Chiefs and hanging 60 plus on the Chargers, and the cigars and the Hall of Famers in the locker room, and think about that level of energy. Where has that been? And Antonio Pierce was entirely responsible for that energy last year, and so we have got to hold him accountable for the energy that's been there this year, and it's fleeting. It's gone away. So at the end of the day, and while I still don't subscribe to the idea that the Raiders should have made a press for Harbaugh, because I don't think that would have been a good fit for the Raiders. But I do think that at this point, we've got to stop listening to players. It's just like I say about you're ready. Here you go, Scott. You ready for me to get a little controversy here going on Silver and Black today?
Go.
Just like I say about Oakland politicians, don't let temporary people make permanent decisions, okay? And that's what players are. They're temporary. Because aside from a guy like Max Crosby, who we hope will be a lifetime Raider, odds are, like most all these guys, the league tenure was 3 years in the league? Don't let those guys decide who your next head coach is going to be. Davante Adams pounded the table, openly put it out there that if it's not Antonio Pierce, then I want out. And he was lying the whole time, and now he's gone. So you know what? Mark Davis, Tom Brady, the Richard Seymour, whoever is going to be involved in this process going forward, don't listen to the players. And if they want to pout and stand their ground and request to be traded, bye.
Well, and again, I see some people in the chat talking about how the team. Let me find this one.
D-Nice, I don't want Gruden back. Quit with that shit.
Yeah, I know.
I made one comment on the show before about something that I overheard. That's not me proponent of that. Stop.
Correct. And Bourbon Country Raider team today played with incredible effort. We're one of the youngest teams. Penalties changed for the better. Getsy and Minshew got to go. Getsy play designs. So Bourbon Country Raider, two things. One is they're the 12th youngest team. That's not exactly the youngest. The Packers are younger. The Lions are younger. The Bengals are younger. And now the Bengals have struggled too. But you look at the top 5 teams. The Chiefs are younger. They have young teams and they play well. So effort is one thing. And I would say that you could see effort. But effort is not discipline. Effort is not focus. Okay, you can have effort. I didn't say there's a couple players you called one out, including Jack Jones again, who I saw some issues with effort. But overall, I don't disagree with Bourbon Country Raider. I think these guys are playing. But again, I don't find that the focus is there, and that goes back to the coaching staff. You don't have a quarterback. That's true. That's not Antonio Pierce's fault. I'm sure he had feedback when they went to go sign a quarterback. I'm sure he was involved in the discussion. But what were your choices? People are like, you should have got Kirk Cousins. Come on. You're not going to pay that for Kirk Cousins with the position you're in. You're not going to do that. Sam Darnold. Yeah. If I asked you 2 months ago, let's go sign Sam Darnold, you guys would have said, you're nuts. Yeah. You're crazy. Right. So it's easy in retrospect to look at Sam Darnold, who's having a great year. Good for him to say that. So again, like I said last week, Murph, multiple layers of issues here, coaching, players, injury, those all factor in. There's no doubt that those factor in. But when I look at the coaching piece of it, I'm going to the discipline, the focus, and I'm going to game time decision-making. That's the 3 things I'm going with. I'm not going with, look, if the Raiders were 2-5, but we're playing really, really good football and just we're not winning because they're getting beat, then you're like, okay, that's fine. Like everybody wants to compare him to Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell went 3-13 that first year. Yeah. His team played really hard. They sucked. They did not put it together, right? But you did not see this sort of malaise. You didn't see, and this is where I was really worried about Raider Nation, because since I'm not the fan side, I was really worried because people were buying into, we live in a world where things are hyped. We see it with politics right now. We see it with everything, okay? And so it doesn't matter. And I go back, every show I go back to it, Murph. Resume on the grass. Resume on the grass. 2-5 is the resume on the grass. And you can't make excuses for it because that's what it is. And I'm glad that they showed some moxie coming back a little bit towards the end there. That one offensive drive, I said, where the hell has this offensive play calling been all game? Because it was good in that one drive where they went down and got the last field goal before. So I saw them move the ball and showing some creativity. So I'm not in disagreeing with anybody about Getsy, right? You've talked about that. I think everybody's in the same position on that. And the way this Raider team is going, I would think that, again, I don't know who you replace him with, though. And you can say, anybody's better. The rest of the guys on that roster, with maybe the exception of Scott Turner as far as the coaching goes, Murph, everybody else is a retread. Like, who else do you want to run the offense? It's a really difficult position that Antonio Pierce and this team is in.
Yeah, I think you got to go back to, I I don't know who you pick. I don't have the answer to the question.
Yeah.
I would hope that somebody inside the building maybe does. Last year we saw Bo Hardegree take over when Josh McDaniels was let go, to mixed results. But hey, it led to a winning record at the end of the year. But I think at an absolute minimum, there's a Band-Aid that gets put on this Raider team from an offensive coaching perspective. And then in the offseason, I mean, who knows where we go? I mean, if it continues down this track, we're going to have another head coach. I'm sorry. Like the people that are like, oh, you got to give AP 2 years and you got to give him a quarterback. And listen, it's beyond just the issues at quarterback. And that's the thing is that if we don't get, by saying we, I mean Antonio Pierce, I don't want to just entirely funnel the conversation back through him, but it's an important point I think to make that if all the things that we were preached, okay, and even saw the lack of penalties, the discipline of the football team, the energy, all the quote culture, all that stuff was, well, if that's not there, and then you add in losses, mismanagement, right? You start to stack those things up. Well, then what's the evidence to say that, oh, well, if he had a quarterback, everything would be better? And so that's where I'm challenged in terms of endorsing where this team is going to go in terms of next year. So if it continues down this same track, I'm telling you, Scott, we're going to get a burn it down type scenario. Yeah. And I don't think that and guys like Max Crosby, I would hope are going to be around. And I think he's got a contract that would prohibit him from being, just jettisoned off anyways. And nor do I think that would be a good idea. No. Because he is the de facto leader of this football, not even de facto. He is the leader of this football team. And I think the most important thing that still connects us fans to the Raiders is is Max Crosby. I mean, he really is the most important piece to this football team right now. And so despite their showing and their stats and their win and loss and all that, that man has to remain in place. Outside of that, I think it looks like it's going to be an opportunity where we completely reset the board on this thing. And so whoever that next head coach is, whether that's, everybody loves Ben Johnson from the Lions. Everybody, you hear all these names get thrown around out there. But I think that to go back to your Luke Getsy point, there has to be a certain level of innovation that happens with this Raider team to embrace what's going to happen next in the NFL. Not the past, not considering everything that we've done prior to this point, but what's that next thing? We had a big weekend in college football. And I know most of you that are listening to this and watching us now, you all watched those games. You watched the Miami game. You watched Tennessee. You watched Georgia. You watch these offenses and they do these incredibly innovative things and they adapt and they respond and they change and morph and do all these incredible things on the field. Where are those brains at in the NFL? Well, they're all over the NFL, but not when it comes to the Raiders. So in terms of the next incarnation of the Raiders and where we go offensively, I'm with you, Scott, because it gets so stale with Luke Getsy. It's kind of like you get what you've always got because you're doing what you've always done. And at some point, it just tends to peter out. And we could get into the minutia of the plays that develop behind the line of scrimmage and the screens and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this team has got to be forward more thinking and forward more planning than what we've been of late.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I agree with everything you said, and I agree about Max Crosby. Some people in the chat asking, "Oh, if you had two number ones, would you trade Max Crosby?" No. Max Crosby, I said, no. You need an anchor for your team. You got to go get that quarterback, but the quarterback's going to be young, and I believe. Look, Max Crosby's not Davante Adams. Max Crosby wants to be a Raider. I believe him 100% at face value. What he said, he doesn't want to play anywhere else. So I would take it up. You can get better. You can get players that you need if you have the right vision, the right people doing it, the right coaching, all that stuff pretty quickly. Mo and I had the debate about this on our show on Thursday because he thinks the Raiders are closer than I do. But my point was, I look at it closer to being a Super Bowl caliber team. He was looking at more being fair. But I think you're going to see Tom Brady, I think, is going to have a lot of football say in this franchise next year. I think that unless you see something, like I said, unless you see Antonio Pierce do something over the course of the rest of the year, and he's got half a year left, I don't see bringing him back and how it makes sense. And for the people out there who say, we can't keep firing coaches, look at the Houston Texans. 4 coaches in 4 years. 4 coaches in 4 years. Like a quarterback, if you get it wrong, you can't wait 3 years to admit the mistake. get done with it, you're off with it, you go on, right? And you get the right person to help you choose. So to me, that's where it's at. And again, I just don't see Antonio Pierce going much anywhere because I just don't see any improvement from week to week. In fact, I see the same things happening over and over again. So we'll see. Now, from a player perspective, what do the Raiders do? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take our break, our only break. So when we come back, Murph and I will continue to talk about this game, talk about the future of the Raiders, talk about some of the positives because Trayvon Merrick had a great game, as did Nate Hobbs. Some really nice play there. So we'll talk about them when we come back here. So hang on, and we're going to hear now. I'm going to take you through, how about this, little adventure with me to talk about our good friends at BetUS. Now, as you know, this live broadcast brought to you by our good friends at BetUS, where you can bet your football. That's where Mo and I bet our football, and they are awesome. And so I want to show you, again, how easy it is. So BetUS, not only that, but the best thing about this is if you guys want to sign up and bet with us on BetUS, guess what? You can get a free 50% deposit bonus, 150%, I should say, on your first $2,000 using this code. Right? You got the secret here. Write it down. 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. YouTube 150. That's YouTube 150 exclusive offer here. Thanks to BetUS, they bring all of our video to the folks out there in Raider Nation. So we'd appreciate you if you support them as well. And as you can see here, I'm going in the football game where we haven't reached kickoff time yet. So I'm going to bet here the Jets and the Steelers. The Jets are 2.5-point favorites, which is interesting. Davante Adams is going to play. That hamstring suddenly got great, by the way. The Steelers, who are starting Russell Wilson instead after Justin Fields wasn't great. You guys saw him play against the Raiders. But for me, I'm thinking here, I actually like the Jets in this game. As much as that it hurts me to say, I usually would not bet the Jets very often if this will cooperate with me as I'm showing this to you. But anyway, we show the Jets at 2.5. I'm gonna reload this to see if I can get it to work. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna bet 25 on the Jets here. Okay, place this bet so you guys can see here. But this is how easy it is on the website. They also have a great mobile app. Tomorrow we got 2 Monday night games: the Chargers and the Cardinals, and the Ravens and the Buccaneers. I don't think the Chargers win this one. I like the Cardinals as a dog. All right, so I'm going to put 25 on that puppy right here as well. As you can see, again, just doing it right here, confirming my bet so you guys can see it right there. And then I like in this game, too, I like the Buccaneers at home. As good as the Ravens have played, I'm taking dogs. That's what can I say? I like this one better. I'm going 50, not 500 on this one, and you confirm there. But again, this is BetUS. Bet your football. Bet with me. Tell me what you think here with my bets on Sunday, Monday Night Football. But anyway, again, do us a favor, visit BetUS, get that 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. YouTube 150 is the code. Make sure you check it out. Thanks again. All right, we are back now talking Raiders football. If I can get this image off the screen, that would help. Okay. Welcome back, Silver and Black, today in Odyssey Sports Original Podcast with our BetUS post-game show, reaction show. Scott Gulbransen, along with Murph from Raiders Fan Radio. We're here talking about the Raiders' third straight loss, their fourth loss in 5 games. Just to put it into perspective for you, so things are not exactly going in the direction you'd like them to go. We've been talking a lot about that as well. And thank you to everybody in the chat, especially those with the super chat. Remember, the super chat is going all to the One Nation Foundation, which you'll hear about at the end of the show. But if you do that, get on there. We appreciate that very much. And we have audience members coming in. They're watching us. We simulcast this over on Raider Fan Radio, thanks to Murph. So we appreciate it. I can see who those people are here in the chat, which is awesome. So thanks, Tony and Frank and iPatch and Vegas Raider, all those guys out there. Thank you so much for joining us here as well, too, as you guys do. There's a super chat. Look at this one, $20.
Hey,
As in Zoni. Thank you so much. Thomas Brady is our only hope. Damn you, NFL. I love that, actually. That's really funny. That's a good one. It's true. But, you know, life is stranger than fiction. Right, Murph? I mean, the whole Tom Brady thing, I get it, although it wasn't Tom Brady's fault that it wasn't called a fumble. And he basically admitted it, right, in that Woodson TV show. So it's one of those situations where, like, look, okay, I get that, but now it's past. Now he's an owner of the Raiders. So if you hate him, you're hating an owner of the Raiders, which I guess you could do. But I think he's going to have a lot of say in how this football team moves forward. But we talk about some of the positives coming out of this game. I talked about Alexander Mattison, 92 yards. It was good to see. It just wasn't consistent in that key times, but we saw him break some runs off. We saw him do some things I thought that were good. The offensive line was so inconsistent at times. Gardner Minshew was under constant pressure. The Rams defense coming in was a 28th ranked defense. So it wasn't like they were some super defense. So we see the offensive line struggling. Why they're struggling, I don't know. It's coaching, I'm assuming. And I mean the offensive side with Luke Getsy and the scheme, and all, it's just not working. But it was good to see Alexander Mattison run the ball and almost get to 100 yards for the Raiders there. And then, of course, I talked about defense. Trayvon Merrick, I mean, this kid had one of the best hits of the game for sure, one of the best hits of Sunday, I believe. And he just continues to show. I thought this was a big year for him, Murph. He really needed to step up. And so far this year, and as that defense has played well, I think he's been one of those kids where you're like, he's finally in the groove. He's finally getting it.
Yeah, man, incredible defensive performance, man. And let me go back. So you started off talking about Tom Brady, so I want to get to Tom here at the end. And you got in the running game.
Yeah.
And talked about Alexander Mattison. And I did like that the Raiders focused on the run game. And while they had success in the run game, I still don't like the design of plays.
Yes.
You see other teams and the way that they run those, so if you're in shotgun and like the handoffs, it's like bang, right? It's like super fast to get the ball in the running back's hand. Where like our guys like stand back there and it's like 1 beat, 2 beat, ball in hand, and then they go. And I understand that that's a zone read and whatnot, but it seems to me that there's a lack of success when it comes to that. And when you look at this Rams team, it was like, oh, the Rams team, like their defense is not good against the run, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pound the rock. Yeah, but that was the same thing that we said against the Carolina Panthers, and the Carolina Panthers got 40 points hung on them today, and we got dominated. Okay, so so some of the things so again, it's like theoretically these things make sense, but when it comes to an execution and planning and strategy perspective, these things ring hollow for the Raiders. So anyway, so go there with the running game. Then defensively, I'm so glad you brought up Trayvon Merrick. And when we look at Merrick, man, he had a great game. I love to see all the blitzes today. This is now 2 games in a row where they started blitzing him in off the edge, which is, I think, in a way underrated play to be had. And thankfully, Patrick Graham is starting to lean into that. And I think that when you're challenged in the passing game, when you don't have Puka Nacua, when you don't have freaking Cooper Kupp out there, you don't have your star wide receivers, you can kind of take your safety out of the play and send them into the backfield where that ends up. That ain't going to work next week when we play Kansas City. That's just so that was good to see that out of Patrick Graham. But then to go back to the original comments, I'll say this to you, Raider Nation. I know you hate Tom Brady. Everybody hates Tom Brady because you're a Raider fan and the Tuck rule. But what Scott started to say there, and I think is a very critical point to remember, Tom Brady is not responsible for the Tuck rule. Coleman is responsible for the Tuck rule. You should hate Walt Coleman, not hate Tom Brady. Okay? Tom Brady was the quarterback that was in on the play when Charles Woodson knocked the ball loose, and clearly it was a fumble recovered by Greg Biekert. We all know the story. Walt Coleman is the one that overturned the call. Okay, that's where your hate should be directed. The New England Patriots and Tom Brady were not a perennial rival of ours. They were clearly the best team in football during that time.
Oh yeah,
they're not a rival of the Raiders. They beat us in the playoffs once. You want to hate a team? Hate the Pittsburgh Steelers that beat us in the AFC Championship 4 times, right? You want to hate a team? Hate the goddamn Kansas City Chiefs that whip our ass every single year and win the AFC West. You want to hate a team? Hate the Denver Broncos that freaking, when Peyton Manning was there or John Elway was there, would beat our ass and cost us Super Bowls. The Denver Broncos cost us a Super Bowl when Rob Lytle fumbled the ball. Jack Tatum hit him, and they overturned the call, and we didn't have an opportunity to go beat the freaking Dallas Cowboys. You want to hate a team? Hate the Baltimore Ravens when Tony Saragusa's fat ass landed on Rich Gannon and broke his shoulder and took our MVP quarterback out of the game and kept us from winning a Super Bowl. Those are the teams we should hate. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots never kept us from a championship. Walt Coleman did. So All that said, embrace Brady. I don't know if he's going to be a good owner or not. I would hope at a minimum he's an influence to Mark Davis. I hope that at a minimum he's an influence to Mark's ear, and listen, the guy, he's going to know quarterbacks. You want to have a good quarterback? I want a good quarterback. Scott wants a good quarterback. Mo wants a good quarterback. Everybody in the chat room wants a good quarterback. So who would you trust to evaluate a quarterback better than the guy that's done it better than anybody in the history of the entirety of the NFL? So I'm going to lean into Tom Brady's leadership. I'm going to lean into his decision making, and hopefully this is an opportunity for Mark Davis to finally and truly remove himself and become Jeff Lurie or Robert Kraft or any of the other figureheads that are at the helm of an NFL organization in terms of ownership. And you know what? Hand that shit over to Tom. Go be our Billy Bean. Right. Go moneyball the hell out of this thing. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Tom. Have it.
Well, and I think too, the importance here is also not only player evaluation, right? But also when you talk about other people in the organization, I think he is a draw. People want to work with, and just like they wanted to play with him, they want to work with him too. So I would imagine if Tom Brady does take on a significant role, we don't know for sure, but we're just assuming. If he does, then I would think that when you're talking about, if you do have to find a coach, if things don't work out this year and you got to move on, then he's going to be the guy there, and people are going to want to interview. If they know that he's in charge of the football operation and Tom Telesco's there as a GM or whatever the heck his position would be basically, then I think you're going to attract different kinds of people. It's just like a college coach or an organization with a CEO who knows and has a good network, and they want to bring in guys and people who are talented. So I think that has that halo effect on it, because I think the NFL is a good example of how you can quickly turn things around, but you have to have the right people in place making the right decisions, right? It doesn't just turn over quickly because you have a good draft. You have to have good people that sign good free agents, that fit the scheme, that fit the right coaching staff to do that. And I think that as bad as it can be, and as it feels for now, which you guys are used to as Raider fans, by the way, unfortunately, as bad as it feels.
Fired, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as it is, again, if the right moves and the right strategy is undertaken, this thing can turn around quickly. And I think that the Raiders need to do that. I saw people today, they were messaging me, good people. Hey, what if we try to trade for this quarterback? And I'm like, no, you just got to get a young quarterback. And if that young quarterback doesn't work, then do what the Carolina Panthers are going to do, because they're probably going to be number one in the draft again, is get another quarterback. Like, just keep doing it until you get it right. And that's the same thing with the head coaches. I think that's just the way that you need to do it. And this idea that because the Raiders have had a lot of coaches, the Raiders' problem wasn't that they had a lot of coaches. The Raiders' problem as an organization is they had a lot of coaches and they didn't hire any good ones. That's the problem. There's a big difference there. Like I said, Houston went through those 4 coaches in 4 years, and it was bad. Remember how bad they were. But they knew after each year, hey, we're going to try Romeo Crennel. No, it didn't work out. We're going to try. And then they moved on. Okay. So I think that that's what you have to be able, and you have to have people who have a keen eye to say no. Then they got the right GM, they got the right head coach in DeMeco Ryans, and bam, look what they've been able to do. Now, I know they lost today, and CJ Stroud didn't throw for over 100 yards. That's going to happen. But I think overall, again, as I said last week during our show, Murph, as a Raider fan, it feels terrible because you just see this. You see them go play a bad team right now in the Rams and look worse. So what do you do when you look for the positive? You look at the Brock Bowers. You look at guys like Trayvon Merrick and Nate Hobbs and other people on the thing, Robert Spillane. Some of these guys that are playing well, I know it's not like winning, but just know and watch those guys, because those are the guys who will be around. The guys that you talked about, somebody was talking about earlier, the effort that is shown, and they are going 100 miles an hour. It doesn't matter if it's 50-0 or it's 6-3. You see their motor going. Those are the guys that you have to watch and take some pleasure in, as much as the score will bother you at times, right? And then just hope for improvement. Look, I hope Antonio Pierce figures it out. Again, I'm completely doubtful, but I hope he does, because if he does, things would go a lot better for this team, and you'd like to see the offense. Now, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. They might need to go sign somebody. Because if Aiden O'Connell with that broken thumb, I don't know how bad it is. We'll learn more. But if he's out significant time, and it's Gardner Minshew who is playing the worst he's played in his career, frankly, then you got to go get somebody. Okay, you got to go get a veteran who can come in and just try to move this team a little bit.
I'm going to push back a little bit, Scott.
Okay.
All right, you ready for this?
Tanking.
Hell no, we ain't gonna tank. It's Carter Bradley season.
Oh,
Carter, don't listen. You're a UNLV guy. That's a Group of 5 school. So don't hate on the Group of 5.
South Alabama.
It doesn't matter. Talent is talent. Where did Derek Carr come from? Group of 5. Where did Josh Allen come from? Group of 5. Right? There are talented players that play in the Group of 5. 100%. And so I think that you've got to give Carter Bradley an opportunity because he can't be worse than turning the ball over 4 times. So today our emergency quarterback was Jacoby Myers. And where was Jacoby Myers?
Inactive.
Exactly. So what the hell was that freaking the logic behind that? So put in Carter, but I'm not kidding. And I'm not an advocate for tanking or any of that kind of stuff. But let the young man get some reps. He got He had some great plays in the preseason to Tyreek McAllister. Like there was a lot going. I know it's a preseason, and save me the tweets and the freaking comments. I get it. I understand context. I'm 52 years old. I get context. I'm going to be dead in a little while. But the whole point is that let the young man get some reps and see what he's got. Like, why not? Like, because we already know what Gardner Minshew is going to be. Yeah. Aiden O'Connell's got a busted thumb. Jacoby Myers is riding the freaking the recovery bench. So put in Carter Bradley. Let number 14 go out and see what he's got in Kansas City. Why not? I mean, throw him to the wolves. Let's see. Take on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and all that day one. Just freaking go for it, man. Swing for the fences, because that's what I say about quarterbacks. In the NFL, you've got to swing and swing and swing until you finally connect. True. And then at that point, Scott, you're a long-suffering Padres fan. You know what I'm talking about when it comes to swinging and swinging, because it's been a long time since Tony Gwynn, rest in peace, has been in that dang building. You got to swing until you find your guy. And so when it comes to the Raiders and quarterbacks, hey, we know we don't have one in Gardner Minshew. So instead of 15, put in 14 and let's roll.
And what's the worst that can happen? He'd do as bad as Minshew, and you're in the same place anyway.
Yeah, well, we lose again.
You sold me. You sold me. I'm in.
Hey!
I'm in. Let's go. Carter Bradley. What the hell? We got to make a T-shirt, right? That's what happens. We have to make some.
That's what happens. Yeah, you got to make a T-shirt. I got to burn all the Minshew Mania shirts that we made up, and I got to start with the Carter Bradley season shirts.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh yes. But hey, again, like you said, you why not? Now, the only issue there is if you're a head coach, do you want to put a rookie out there like that? Now, I know you say, well, Gardner Minshew's it does worse, but coaches don't always think that way. They think he's a veteran. He'll turn it around. So we'll see what they do. But I think here's my point of view.
Okay.
I think it's a really, 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 and listen, I'm not a GM. I had somebody yak at me on Twitter today saying, "Oh, why don't you go in the building if you're so smart?" Yeah, I'm not. I'm not that smart. I'm not a GM, okay? I'm just giving you my opinion. If I don't hear from this coaching staff, this leadership this week that they have got to make drastic changes now, meaning with how they play call games, how they're running games, all this kind of stuff, to me, then that means they're in denial. And if they're in denial, this is all going to continue to go south, right? Because I didn't see last week, hey, we need to change it up on offense. I watched the press conferences. I watched Luke Getsy. Well, yeah, we got didn't hear anything about, no, we're starting from scratch. That's what you should hear. I think fans, if I'm a fan, I want to hear, look, you guys suck. Just tell me you're going to do things differently. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. But at least I know you're trying. If we don't see that they're trying to change this, Murph, that's a big, big red flag.
Yeah, and that's an incredibly great point, and it segues perfectly into what I wanted to jump on there, was that I think not only myself, but everybody in Raider Nation, we're about over this idea that your system is the thing that's going to be successful. Like, your system sucks. I'm sorry, coach, whoever you are, whether you're Coach Getsy or whoever, your system sucks. So do something different, because if you keep banging your head against the wall with a lack of output and production and you don't do anything different, then all you're doing is investing in your pride and ego. And you know what? None of us in this chat room and on this show give a shit about your pride and ego. We care about production and W's. We care about numbers in the left side of the column more than we care about numbers in the right side of the column. them. So quit trying to merge people and merge players into your way of thinking. And listen, I'm arrogant enough to sit here and tell you to be like, oh, I understand exactly what Luke Getsy's offense is and what he's trying to. I don't know, but all I know is what the optics are and what the visuals are and what the eye test gives us. And it sucks. It's not good. So do something different. And if you're not willing to admit, like, hey, you know what? My bad. I thought this was going to work. I thought by spreading this thing out and by having all these plays develop behind the line of scrimmage and take advantage of the corners and exploit these wide nines and delay the freaking runs so our running backs could find the zones and hit the that's great. That's great that you thought that, but that's not what's happening. What's working? Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, get the ball in your playmakers' hands downhill. So if you're not willing to innovate and to develop something to attack that and to put those players in the position to make them successful, then what are we doing? Then you don't need to be in the building anymore. And so I'm with you, Scott. That idea that if there's no ability to adapt and overcome, then you're useless. Then pound sand, and we'll find somebody else to try it.
Yeah, but South Florida Raider brings up a good point, though. Maybe you can't do anything different. Well, then that answers that question, right? I mean, if you can't adjust and you can't figure it out, then listen, look, you can. There's plenty of talented people who aren't ready for certain jobs. Okay, I mean, are you going to tell me that Antonio Pierce? Because I've had people say, well, you're not being fair to Antonio Pierce because he doesn't have a quarterback. He doesn't have this. He knew that when he took the job. Okay, so you're going to tell me that if Antonio Pierce didn't take the Raider job, that somebody else would have hired him as a head coach? I know he had an interview, but again, do you think he would have gotten a head coaching job? There's no possible way he would have gotten a head coaching job. So that argument goes out the window because if he was that good, somebody would have snapped him up. That's how it goes. And so I think that you look at the situation and you just have to acknowledge where you're at. I want to hear an acknowledgement. And he said, I mean, to his credit, he did say, look, we're not doing this good. We're not doing that good. But the problem is when you have to say that 5 weeks in a row or 4 weeks in a row, okay, even though you won one of those games, when you have to say those 4 out of 5 weeks, it means very little unless you're improving on it. If you're not improving on it and you just come out and saying, well, yeah, that's on us. We didn't coach them well enough. They didn't play well enough. We weren't disciplined enough. Okay, guess what? You own that. So I think that that's where we're at with this team is like, look, again, if they go out and play hard and get beat because they're just playing a better team, okay, all right. Like the Chiefs. If they lose to the Chiefs, whatever. I know that sucks for everybody out there, but okay, you could understand it. But to lose to the Rams and not be able to get a touchdown and what happened today, that's really disheartening because that is not a team that should be able to do what they did with the Raiders. And the Raiders made it possible because they turned the ball over. They scored every point on turnovers, Murph. And to me, that is more infuriating than just losing because a team is better than you.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel bad, Scott, for all the fans that showed up at SoFi tonight, or today. We've never won a game in SoFi Stadium with fans. I now believe we're 0-6 with fans. Is that right? Against the Chargers and the Rams. We've won one COVID game, which frankly doesn't count. And so I feel for all those Southern California Raider fans and beautiful Raider Nation, man, and down there, and those Southern California Raider fans hold it down so amazingly for Raider Nation. I know that for your show and for our show too, if you look at a heat map, the majority of our listeners come from Southern California. And so for those folks to head out to SoFi Stadium and take that thing over again, and then to have to sit there and watch this, turd sandwich get served to them, like I hate that for them. And while I understand the whole concept of like, there's a lot of Raider fans that are out there going like, oh, let's just tank the season. Like, let's just lay down. And like, because you got to go through, all that to get to a top 3 pick in order to get your quarterback to get us to the next. I understand conceptually that idea. My silver and black heart will never root for this team to lose. But really, even more than the Raiders today, I wanted the Raiders to win for them, for those fans.
Sure.
That went to that game because, I've been to some amazing Raider games and seen them win. And I saw Chandler Jones spike Mac Jones's face into the earth and run into the end zone. And I was there for when we knocked out the Chargers in the tie game when Derek Carr called the timeout. We won that one. Like, I've seen some great games in Las Vegas and of course in Oakland as well. But anyways, point being though, like those folks that maybe that's the only game they get a chance to go to.
Yeah.
and then this is what they got. And so anyways, that's not even connected to your last comments, but I just wanted to get that point off.
You're the voice of the fan. You voice what you're thinking. I mean, that's the whole point. So
I'm feeling it for those fans. I'll just say that.
No, it does suck. And that's the one thing, because I heard somebody was talking about, Raiders vacation home. And I'm like, hasn't been very good to them.
No,
it's great that all the fans are there. That's the awesome part, right? Because it was loud, it was awesome. But unfortunately, they don't get to see wins, which is not good. So you're right. It's a good call out there for those folks as we talk about the end of this game. But moving forward, look, you got to take it a week at a time. So I'm interested to see. I obviously was on live here, so I didn't see what the press conference looked like today. I'm sure it wasn't great, because who would feel good after that? But I'm interested to see tomorrow what Coach Pierce has to say, and sort of if there's any kind of changes coming down the line with staff or anything like that. We'll see how it goes. You never know what's going to happen, but we'll keep our eye on that. Before we get out of here for today, and thank you for the chat. Everybody's in there talking about it's good therapy. I'm glad that you're doing it. And everybody, I know on your show, my show, even people who disagree with me, always good natured. And I appreciate you guys all being in there. And thank you to all of you who put in the super chat. Very good. Going back to the One Nation Foundation. And that's what we want Murf, because I know a lot of you know about it, but we always have new viewers on. And I want to make sure Murf talks about the One Nation Foundation, what they do, and how you can be a part of it. Go ahead, Murf.
Thank you, Scott. One Nation Foundation is our nonprofit that we formed when we figured out back in 2019 that we can make some money with doing our show, Raiders Fan Radio. So we appreciate all of those of you that support Raiders Fan Radio. 100% of the money that we make with the show goes to Raiders-related charities like the Bolitnikoff Foundation, like the good folks at Raider Dad. We give 100% of that money away, and so we can't do it without your support. So if you would just do us a favor and to support the One Nation Foundation by supporting Raiders Fan Radio. We never like to ask for support of the show, because we don't think we're that cool, but we do think the foundation is that cool. So check us out, RaidersFanRadio.com. There's a drop down there where you can hit OneNationFoundation.net and directly donate to the foundation monetarily. Also, you can go to our TeePublic site, just search for Raiders Fan Radio, and you can buy cool shirts like the one that I'm wearing here. Or, just even if you can't support us monetarily, we just ask for a like, a subscribe, a thumbs up. Check us out, youtube.com/Raiders Fan Radio. We come live to you each and every Wednesday. We're going to be to you, as you can see here. I've got a busted up set. I got a busted up microphone. I got like a 15-year-old computer gaming headset on over here, Scott. I'm busted up because we're right in the middle of a move. And so we're going to be in the new version of Murph's Fan Cave here in a few weeks. But in the meantime, we come see us on Wednesday. Again, youtube.com/Raiders Fan Radio. We're going to be in Michelle's Spooky Lounge, awesome. And which is fantastic, man. It's a great setup there. We're going to be talking about scary movies. Most importantly, the Raiders lamenting this stupid game that we just all had to watch. But can't thank you enough for your support, Raider Nation, and can't thank you enough, Scott, for the platform tonight. Love you, brother, and can't wait for this next week.
Thank you, man, as always. And we're glad we can just be a small part of it, and everything that you guys do is awesome. And that's what makes Raider Nation as great as it is. I know they would like their football team to be better, and I know one day it will be. I know it's been a long time, but the energy around Raider Nation, for the most part, you got your negative people out there, just like every group, but overall Raider Nation supports one another amazingly. It's just crazy how good it is. And we've seen that with what they've done with you guys and the One Nation Foundation, and of course Raiders Fan Radio. So we appreciate you guys doing that and supporting Murph and supporting everything they do. So make sure you catch them Wednesday and jump in there and have some fun. Murph, thanks, man. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Scott, I love you. Hey, first and foremost, at the end of last show, I said, let's beat the Chiefs, because I forgot about that we had to play the Rams, and apparently so did the Raiders. So now let me effectively say, let's beat the Chiefs. Let's go, Raiders!
There you go. Murph, I love it, man. Take care, brother. All right, there you go. That was Murph, and we appreciate you guys being with us. Such a good dude, and I'm glad that we do that. I think that when you look at our shows are very different. Mo and I try to keep things way down the middle. Even though Mo is a Raiders fan, we always try to be objective for you. Sometimes people don't like that because the truth hurts a lot. But that's what we do, and I certainly appreciate bringing Murph on. We first had this idea 2 years ago to bring him on the post game, because I felt like, we can go and analyze the game and talk about what went well, what didn't. But I like to hear what the fans have to say, because you guys are always in the chat and saying that. So to me, having him on is great. I love doing that with this post-game show. So thank you guys for being with us. And a reminder, the show brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Do us a favor. Go check out BetUS. You can get 150% sign-up bonus. Hey, I'm getting you free money here, folks. YouTube 150 is the promo code. YouTube 150 from our good friends at BetUS. They make this post-game show, this live post-game show possible. So go use that code and you will enjoy betting your football there. Yes, and I bet against the Raiders today. And the Rams didn't cover, so at least the Raiders won that. They beat people who bet against them. So there you go. Anyway, but thank you guys. And I want to thank also our producer, Mike Robier at Odyssey, for helping us out as he does every show. And thank all of you for being with us. Mo and I will be back on Tuesday. We'll do a little more deep dive on some of this, and we'll see what the fallout of this game and what happened. And of course, we'll check in on Aiden O'Connell's thumb and see how that's going. We send our best out to him and his wife. Hopefully he heals up quickly. I'd like to see him back on the field as soon as possible. For everybody here at Silver and Black today, this has been our live post-game show brought to you by BetUS. We will see you guys on Tuesday. Thanks for being with us.